musicality.
Hey guys, normally I would introduce myself as JL, but for tonight, you guys can just call me James, because we're just chilling. That's right, it's the Chillcast with JL you've always been waiting for. You're probably wondering, James, where is everybody else? Well, we're in college with jobs and family obligations, so we can't dedicate as much time to this as we would like. Obviously, we want to make this our lives at some point. But right now, we're not really in a spot where we can do that, so we're just doing what we can. In the meantime, we really appreciate your support because these are actually stressful and hard to make despite how easy it seems, and we haven't even started making our main content yet. I mean, we started the production phases of it, but we haven't started putting it out yet, and you can imagine how stressful that's going to be. So your support means so much to me. It means so much to you, Kobe, Jonathan, Exodus, all of us. So thank you. Me being alone today leads perfectly into our topic, which is loneliness. Kind of appropriate because I'm alone, except for you guys. And God. But if you guys leave, it'll just be me and God. And I don't want you guys to leave. So wherever you are, take a deep breath, relax, kick off your shoes, get a warm cup of cocoa, Don't put the lo-fi beat on because I want you guys to listen to this. But just relax, y'all. Let's get real. So, loneliness, right? For starters, being alone isn't even the problem for me. It's the mental side effects that come with being alone that are the problem. It's more the wondering why I'm so alone that hurts more than the people not being around. Like, when I was young, I was always alone. Like, I was always in a book, had my head in, like, La La Land. I was always alone back then, so that never really bothered me. It's more of wondering why, what's wrong with me? Why don't people want to be around me? That's what's always hurt me. Even Jesus asked his Father while he was on the cross in Matthew 27:46. He said, my God, why have you forsaken me? And I got to make sure not to take that out of context. Because one, Jesus was dying on a cross, one of the most painful execution methods known to man. And two, he had the weight of all the sin of everybody from all time, all around the world on him at once. So the loneliness that he felt is it doesn't even compare to the loneliness that I feel. So, I can't really compare my suffering to Jesus's. But my point is, even Jesus felt alone at some point. So, I'm no sociologist, but I'm going to do my best to answer the question, why we get lonely. So, why do we get lonely? I'd say, one, it's part of being a human. Your body will naturally kick back at you if you're alone for too long. Like, I took sociology for a bit. Like I said, I'm no sociologist, so don't come to my house asking for a session. But I took sociology for a bit, and we studied these cases of these things called feral children. And basically, feral children are children who have spent years isolated from humans. Like, they've had no human contact, and they're deprived of the socialization necessary to function as members of society. They experience mental, physical, and social impairments because of this. It's that serious. Basically, like, they come out, there's these children that have been isolated since age 2, or maybe they've been left in the woods, and people find them around age 4 and they don't know how to talk to people. Their cognitive thinking processes are all screwed up because they haven't interacted with other children. We're naturally wired to be around people, and when we're not around people, it can have horrible side effects. And not just people, we're all born longing for something more. My favorite book of the Bible, I've told a lot of people this, it's Ecclesiastes. And a lot of people look at me weird when I say that. If you've ever read Ecclesiastes, a lot of people are like, oh, it's a depressing book, but I kind of enjoy it. Ecclesiastes 3:11 says, he has made everything beautiful in his own time. He has also set eternity in the human heart. I love that part. Yet no one can fathom what God has done from the beginning to the end. So, as that verse just said, eternity is in our hearts. We're all born longing for a connection with our Maker. And if you don't have that connection, that could be one reason why you're alone. And that's for the non-Christians out there. For the Christians out there, if you're a Christian and you still feel alone, are you connecting with others? Are you making sure you're connecting with God on the daily? Even Jesus took time to connect with God while he was on earth. So that just goes to show how important it is. Christian or not, we as humans are social in nature, and when that social nature isn't fed, it can lead to feelings of loneliness that we all feel. Another reason we might feel alone is because we try so hard to avoid loneliness that we end up causing it. What I mean by that is you either push away people, or you end up getting so sick of people and social interaction that you begin to crave loneliness, which is a dangerous place to be in, I would know. That's kind of where I'm at right now, actually. That's one of the reasons why I decided to do a podcast on this topic, but more on that later. Back to my point about exhausting ourselves. We become so focused on preventing loneliness that we end up getting our hopes up over and over and over, and depending on people when we should be depending on God the most. Like, it's okay to depend on people. I'm not saying it's wrong to depend on a person, but has there ever been a human that has never let you down? People will fail you over and over and over. And if you keep hoping and relying on them, you'll let that cycle repeat. And it will repeat too many times, and you end up craving loneliness and leading yourself back to that dangerous place I just mentioned. And I'm not saying, like I said before, I'm not saying you shouldn't rely on people. Like, there certainly are people that you can rely on. But, we're human. We're limited in our ability. There's, like, certain things that we can't do. So, you can't put too much of your expectation on one person if they're not God. That's why it's so important to have, a God you can look to, somebody who won't fail you in life. Because if you keep depending on people who innately will fail you, because we're not perfect by any means, like, I can testify to that. But if you keep depending on people to fulfill all your hopes and dreams and desires, you're just going to get let down again and again and again. So, you're gonna feel alone as part of the human condition. We just talked about it. It's gonna happen. So how do we handle the loneliness? How do we handle being alone? Sometimes you really should just talk to people about it, about how lonely you feel, because I guarantee you there's other people who feel the same exact way. The crazy thing is, I've been thinking about this a lot, is that even in your loneliness, you're not alone, because everybody gets lonely. So even when you feel alone, you're not alone in feeling that feeling, because, my brain hurts. You're not alone in feeling that feeling, because everybody gets lonely. On the flip side of that, if someone comes to you saying that they're lonely, don't take it as an insult to you as a friend. Take it as them trusting you enough to say something about it and not be judged every time they come to you with a problem. That goes into being there for people too, just like I talked about earlier. It's important that even though you're not perfect, to be there for people as much as you can, to listen to them, because you never know what somebody's going through. And, if every time somebody tries to come to you with a problem and you're ignoring them every single time, or you talk over them every single time, that's just going to push them further and further into isolation. And that's not going to help anything at all. Like, I got tons of people that I know will listen to me if I want to go and talk about anything. And it's a beautiful thing to have. I encourage you guys, find a group that you can talk to, or find a church, more importantly, that you can go to, where there's people that you can talk to. And even if you're not in church, find a counselor, a school counselor. They're there for a reason. So find somebody you can talk to about your emotions, because if you let those bottle up, they can be like poison. They'll eat you up, man. Back on my points, even Jesus got up early to spend time with God when he would be alone and have someone to talk to. He got up like super early when nobody else would be around, so it could just be him and God. It's like one of my favorite characters. I watched this show a long time ago called Kiznivers. I really recommend it, by the way. It's a great show. It's about pain and feelings and emotions, and it's super great. The main character, he says, it's okay if you don't understand. Just stay with me, watch me, and slowly come to understand. My mom always says people don't, care how much you know until they know how much you care. She always says that. Sometimes you just need to, you don't have to understand somebody like when you first meet them. You just got to take the time to get to know them, stay with them, watch them, and then slowly get to know them, slowly come to understand. And the problem is, some people give up too early. Like, maybe you'll go and meet somebody and you won't like them at first impression, so you'll just give up on them, even though they might really, really, really need a friend. They might need your guidance. They might need that friendship that you could provide, and they're looking to you for that. And when you don't provide that, just because you don't understand them, that can completely flip their view of you and their view of God. Like I said, we're all built with this inner drive to connect to people around us. Like, everybody wants to connect. Everybody wants to form a bond with somebody. Everybody wants to carve their scars into somebody else. And I got that from that show too. It's a great show. There's tons of great quotes. And I'm not going to read them all now, but they're amazing. Another way to see loneliness, another way that can help, is you can see loneliness as a blessing. When you're alone, you can focus on your relationship with God and how much you can impact others with your actions. and that's like friend-wise. Romantically speaking, singleness is a blessing. Like, I've never dated anybody before in like my entire 18 years of existing, so I don't know what it's like to not be alone that way, but you're not tied or committed to anybody else, so you're free to talk to whoever you want, and overall there's just more time for yourself that you can focus on having a relationship with God over anybody else. There are many, like tons of biblical people in the Bible, biblical examples who are single, like Elijah, Paul, Saul, and John the Baptist, who were able to greatly expand their ministries because they were single. On the other side of that, too much time alone can really be bad for you, because we've even seen in the Bible where those same great figures I just mentioned got lonely. I've done like a ton of research for this podcast, but Psychology Today says researchers have found that loneliness is just as lethal as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Lonely people are 50% more likely to die prematurely than those with healthy social relationships. NIA.gov also says research has linked social isolation and loneliness to higher risks for a variety of physical and mental conditions: higher blood pressure, heart disease, obesity, a weakened immune system, anxiety, depression, cognitive decline, which is thinking process, Alzheimer's disease, and even death. So you can see that we're made to connect with people. We need that connection. And if we don't have that connection with people, more importantly, you need that connection with God. Because you can see the side effects that I just listed off. They're pretty serious. So we need others. Those examples just go to show how bad overdoing with the whole being alone thing can potentially be. Being alone in moderation is key. Like, everybody needs time for just themselves. But it's all in the balance. Like, you definitely don't want to overdo it. Because like you just heard the side effects I read, and I don't want any of that. So another way to beat loneliness is to take care of yourself. I've met tons of people who always talk about how in their feelings are and how lonely they are, myself included. I've met tons of people that talk about how lonely they are and all these feelings that they're going through when they're really neglecting their health, and that might be part of it. The way I see it, there's two types of loneliness. Well, not exactly two types of loneliness. As far as I can tell, there's physical loneliness, which is like your body, all that. And then there's spiritual loneliness, which is your connection to God. Physical would be the things that we can touch and see, and the spiritual will be your connection to something more. If both areas aren't well fed, then you'll feel the effects of like a misbalance, I guess. Like if your physical is fed but your spiritual is not, you're always going to feel out of balance, because your spiritual state is the most important. Your physical state completely relies on your spiritual state, not vice versa. Like, yes, your body is important, but the spirit is like at the center. It's who you are. So if you're declining that, if you're declining feeding your spirit and what you put in your body, not just food, by the way, like the things that you watch and listen to, that can affect your attitude and how you feel. Another thing, sometimes your body just needs to chill. It just needs chill vibes. Like, I'm talking, it's a Friday night, you come home, the lights are out, you get into your room, you hop into a game of Minecraft with the boys, not a worry in the world, everything's right. And more recently, like, you go into your room, you got the warm lamps. I'm describing my night, by the way, right now. You got like a book, you got your drink, it's warm, you got your red robe on, the fuzzy saffron one. I think it's saffron. You got the fuzzy saffron one on. The heat's on like 76. Don't call me a psycho, but the heat's on 76. And like, it's just so comfortable. Sometimes you just need to take care of yourself. Please take care of yourself, guys. I love you guys, so please take care of yourselves. I go to this Monday night Bible study. This happened Monday. She said, remember, in the end, when it comes down to it, it's God and you have to be satisfied with that at some point. Like I mentioned this before, people are always going to fail you. And I'll try my best not to fail you. And I'm pretty sure people don't want to fail you on purpose. But, when it comes down to it, it's going to be you and God in the end, because, we're all going to die and we all got to face God at the judgment seat someday. So in the end, when it comes down to it, it's going to be you and God, and you have to be satisfied with knowing that sometimes people aren't going to like you because you may have a different opinion. But you just got to be okay with knowing that you got God with you. And that can be super hard because, like I said, there's a physical component to that where you just want to relate to other people. But, when it comes down to it, I would rather have a connection with my maker than the connection with like everybody else. Like, yes, I love you guys, but I would love to have, like, if I could have a deeper relationship with God or the people around me, I would choose God every single time. Another thing, if you're lonely, go out and change that. Hang around with people. I know some of you might struggle with social anxiety, and you guys are like, did you just tell me to go out and change that? You don't know how hard that is. Remember, if you want friends, you first have to be friendly. You have to show yourself friendly. And that's not from me, that's from scripture. Also, your phone might be one of the reasons why you feel so alone all the time. Think about it. If you're always staring at the screen, even though you've been socializing with other people on your phone, you're missing that face-to-face connection, which I think is so important. Like, our generation, not just our generation, in general, our society has forgotten the importance of meeting somebody face-to-face. Think about it. If you're staring at the screen the whole time, even though you've been, like, socializing with people on social media, it's not exactly social, because you're spending your time staring at pictures of people and seeing their lifestyle that they're living. And there's nothing social about that. Like, there's nothing social about looking at the lifestyle somebody's living and then scrolling, looking at the next person. Social interaction is living life together. It's going out into the real world and doing things together. That's social interaction. One final reason you might feel alone is because, like I mentioned previously, guys, sin messed up a ton of stuff in our lives. Like, before everything was perfect, then sin came into the world and it ruined a ton of stuff that, God had set for us to enjoy, like our bodies. So we struggled with mental illnesses, and that's no joke, guys. Like, if you're actually feeling that, talk to somebody, because, people do care for you. There's actually people that really do care for you. So, you can go find somebody to talk to. Find a pastor, a teacher. They're all there for a reason. They're there to listen to you. Now, I mean, this part's kind of hard. I mentioned this before, but onto what I've been dealing with lately. I've done not a ton of research. I've done a lot of research, as you might be able to tell, for this podcast episode, because it's a very serious topic that I've been struggling with lately. Lately, I've stopped wanting to hang out with my friends, instead staying in my room and wanting to be alone. I don't know how to put this. It's like I've stopped caring, and I don't really feel anything around people I normally feel things for. I told you guys in my testimony about how I used to be, cold to everyone, emotionless, quiet, and I hope you guys saw how God freed me from that. But I can slowly see that side of me, slowly rising to the surface, and it scares me a ton, because I don't want to fall back into how I used to be. And it feels like there's nothing I can do to stop it. Like, it feels like every single day, I'm writing a song about it right now, actually, but it feels like every single day, like, a little bit more of me slips. Like, that vibrant, happy Jail that you guys know slips a little bit more. And, I hate it so much. And lately it's just been, like, happening quicker and quicker and quicker and quicker. It feels like there's nothing that I can do to stop it. And I know God has all the power. And the spiritual side is so important. And I've done a lot better lately about feeding my spirit, and, but you still feel that loneliness, I'm confused right now about whether I'm being self-reliant or an isolationist. Like, that was a big debate that I was thinking about before this. Am I being self-reliant? Like, do I want to rely on myself and trust myself to do these things? Or am I just cutting myself off from other people? I would like to think it's more the first one, because I do try to rely on myself a lot more. So I think it's probably that one. I don't think I'm antisocial, because, I'm a very social person. Like, I bloom in front of people. Like, that's my zone. I definitely wouldn't be doing this if I didn't like people, obviously. But I don't know. It's just really weird. But late at night is when it gets, like, really tough. I've written tons of my songs about it, which I hopefully will be able to share with you soon, like, really, really soon. But sometimes all I can do is just lay there and take it. Like, I can just, like, feel, like, the pain, but I don't. Like, it's, like, how, like, if I punch you on the arm, right, depending on how strong I am and how strong you are, it would probably hurt you. Well, nah. it might hurt you. That's better. It might hurt you. But the pain that I feel, I can't like place it. Like it's just somewhere inside of me. You know, I don't really know where it is. But the rest of me is just like completely numb. Like I don't feel it at all. Like I remember one night I woke up and it was like 3 a.m. and like I walked into my room and I just stared at my blinds, and because I was sleeping in the living room, I fell asleep on the couch. And like the moonlight streaming through it, and like I was screaming on the inside. Like this happens a lot. Like I hold back the screaming inside me. Like I hold back the pain from coming out vocally. Like all I can do is just like sit there blankly and hold it in until, you know, the morning comes. And it's like one of the worst feelings ever. And the thing that makes it like a million times worse is that I hate sharing what I'm going through, even though I know it's what I need to do. Another one of my favorite quotes from Kisniver, like I mentioned before, is there's this one character, and he says, if you don't know what state your wounds are in or where you're hurting, if you don't know that for yourself, there's no point in trying to share it with others, is there? So I've always kind of felt that. Like I wrote this bar for one of my songs. It was like, what's the point of me sharing my pain if nothing's gonna change? Telling you won't change anything. And there was another variation to it too. It was like, what's the point of me sharing my pain if it's still gonna rain? Telling you won't change anything. So, you know, I've always, I don't know, telling people helps to a certain extent, but you know, at some point it's between you and God. Like at some point you and God have to handle that. Yes, certain people can help you, but at a certain point it's between you and God. Wow. Yeah, I've just been going through a lot of stuff lately, guys. And that's why I need y'all. NoDream Nation, I need you. I need you guys to move with me, with us to change the world. Not just me, with us to change the world. Because honestly, none of us can live this life alone. And if we had to, it would really, really suck. And I'm sorry if you've had to live life alone, but I'm here for you. And more importantly, God is here for you. There's a God that wants a relationship with you. Like, I know society makes God seem like this big old dude up in the sky with like lightning bolts. And yes, he does have those, by the way. But he's a loving God. The scripture says God is love. He's the very essence of love. He is love. And he wants a relationship with you. And, you know, as hard to believe as that can seem, yes, he does want a relationship with you. And it's hard for me to believe too sometimes. But, you know, repeatedly over and over and over, scripture tells us that he's pursuing us. He loves us. He died for us. You know, he took the very weight of the sin that we could not bear and placed it on his shoulders, and carried that for us. He bore our burdens. He became nothing, lowering himself to the form of a servant, you know, taking on an excruciating death, even the death of the cross. And then he defeated death and rose victorious, all for us. Like he did that all for us. And it blows my mind every time I think about it. And like I talked about before, that connection with God, you know, that spiritual versus physical balance. Yes, you may have like 50 million friends, but if your spiritual balance isn't right, then nothing's going to feel right. You're still going to feel empty. And if you don't have that connection to God, I don't know if you guys want to, like, if anybody out there is listening to this isn't saved, but if you want to have that connection, you guys can pray with me. I'm just going to pray out loud real quick. You can probably pull over your car first. I don't want you to crash, LOL. But yeah, you guys can just pray with me real quick. Let's pray. God, I know I've done a lot of things that have hurt you and separated me from you. Please forgive me for all the wrong that I've done. Come live in me, with me, and help me to be more like you. Thank you. Amen. Yeah, I know that was kind of short. And maybe I did say that prayer a little bit too fast so you guys can say it along with me, but I encourage you guys, just try talking to God. Like a lot of new Christians that I've met recently, they always talk about they don't know how to pray, they don't know how to talk to God. Just talk to God like you're talking to one of your friends, or your parents, because, you know, he made you. He wants a relationship with you. Like, it'll be different if you were trying to talk to a God that hated your guts, but the reality is the inverse of that. He loves you and he wants to have a relationship with you. He wants to talk to you. He wants you to talk to him. Tell him about your day. Tell him about anything. Tell him about what's weighing on you, because the sooner you get that weight off you, the better. So guys, this podcast took a lot out of me. Thank you for letting me be honest with you guys, I've really enjoyed our time together. And if you haven't yet, just go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. You already know you're going to again. You're going to be back for the next one anyway, so you might as well just go ahead and subscribe. And follow us on Instagram. All those links will be in the bio or the channel description. I can't remember which. Make sure you share this with at least one person who you think really needs this. Like I said, y'all, we can change the world. Like, legit, I'm so excited for this. We can't let the fire die down. Like, my mom was talking to me earlier about this. And she was talking about Jay. She calls me Jay, by the way. She said, Jay, as soon as you start moving for God, the devil's going to try to slip in the cracks any which way he can get in. Like, anywhere he can slide in. The devil's going to try to attack you with any method that he can. And not only have we been, I say we've been under attack the past few weeks. And I know a lot of you have too. But that doesn't matter because we know how the story ends. We know Jesus is victorious. And then we know, if you look at the book of Revelations, if you guys don't know, we see that ultimately evil is defeated. Jesus wins in the end. And since Jesus wins in the end, we win in the end. So we can walk in victory. We can go and change the world. Like, I don't know. A lot of people have told me, James, like they told me this in high school all the time. They're like, James, you're too nice. The world's going to tear you apart. And, no, we're more than conquerors. I feel like we can, if we go too hard, we are literally going to tear the world. Like, we're going to change the world. Like, we can flip this upside down. And it all starts with you individually and me individually and everybody stepping out in faith and going into their zone, getting your zone, going to that area that God has for you and stepping out in faith and saying, God, use me, and just being bold and courageous and doing what God has set you there at that specific time and that specific place for. And that's just living out our faith. Some exciting announcements, right? Speaking of sharing, we're now on Spotify. I have to be my own air horn because nobody else is here to be my air horn. That's normally Jonathan's job. But we're on Spotify. Also, our logo is close to finishing. And I think it was, when was it? Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday. Me, Steven, and Kobe. I think it was Kobe. Yeah, me, Steven, and Kobe headed up to Atlanta. And on the way, we got to work on some music stuff and lyrics and get on the same page, and make sure we're all heading in the same direction. And it was great. So we have a lot of things headed your way. So make sure you follow us on all the social media I just mentioned so you don't miss any of it. And I guess that's it. And remember, y'all, we got no dream but the one dream, to praise the one king. Not no dream jail, but to y'all, James Lingard, signing out. Hey guys, Jail here. Thank you so much for watching till the end of the video. This is my favorite one today and I loved how it turned out. Quick note, the podcast is not a substitute for actual church, so get out of bed and go to church. Remember, even though you may be lonely, all of us at NoDream are family. So let's change the world with God leading us. We can never fail. Jail.